I think the industry is coming into a time where it'll be a period of strong growth, and there's a lot of opportunities for businesses to change their business and be more tech-driven and transform a little bit. And I personally see the real estate institutes as playing a big part in that.
You're listening to Elevate, the official podcast of Elite Agent for real estate industry sales professionals, property managers and leaders. With thanks to our partner Connect Now, Elevate brings you the best tools, thinking and strategies to elevate your results. To download your written action guide from this podcast containing extra tips, links and shortcuts, visit eliteagentelevate.com. And for more information about how Connect Now can make moving easier on your clients, visit connectnow.com.au. Here is your host, Samantha McLean.
Welcome to another episode of the Elevate podcast, where we delve into some of the most interesting minds in business and in real estate for the very best tips and strategies for you to implement to elevate your business. I'm Samantha McLean, editor of Elite Agent and host of this week's show. Joining me on the podcast today is newly appointed Real Estate Institute of Australia CEO Anna Neelagama. Before joining the REIA in August last year, Anna had clocked up an impressive track record in the agribusiness sector, both as a CEO and a policy director. Now she's looking to advocate for real estate with a focus on ensuring government policy settings reflect both the needs of agencies and their customers. It's lovely to meet you and welcome to the show, Anna.
Thank you, Sam, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy New Year. We can still say that, can't we?
I think so, at least until Australia Day.
Totally. So let's start off by giving our listeners a little bit of insight into who you are and your achievements to date, because there is a long list of them. You've had over a decade of experience in working in policy and industry advocacy, as I just said, and before that in government, both locally and overseas. So give us a little bit of background on Anna.
Yes, totally. So I grew up in a farming business, actually, in central Western Queensland, so land, cattle and wool. And at that time, we worked a lot with stock and station agents, obviously. I then went on to study politics and international relations. And after that, my professional experience really allowed me to see, I guess, policy and government from all sides, but with that small business background. So I actually worked for a congressman in the States, which is of particular relevance today, being Inauguration Day in the USA. I worked for Austrade in the States, implementing market entry strategies for Australian clients, and that was anyone from swimwear to luxury yacht products. And then I did a stint in the Northern Territory, actually working for the public servants. So I worked for a politician, I worked for government overseas and government here in Australia. And then I went on to work for Australia's largest agribusiness lobby group called AgForce Queensland, where I worked for the beef sector on helping them achieve their business goals through working with the state government. And that was securing grants, securing reforms to regulation, and generally just driving priorities that helped people make more money in their businesses. I then came to Canberra to be the CEO of the Red Meat Advisory Council, which was another meat role that represented the interests of everyone from the farmer right through to the butcher and exporter. So incredibly busy, but we worked on a lot of trade and investment reforms that really, again, helped all of those businesses in that supply chain. So stepping into the real estate role, I've got that background from working in my family's business, but also the issues at a federal level are just not that dissimilar to what the agribusinesses face, or indeed any other businesses in other sectors in Australia. So it was a natural progression and first step for me, and I love property and I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, and still a meaty kind of role, really, just in a different way.
It's terribly meaty, pun intended.
Absolutely. So it's been an interesting year for the real estate industry, as we were just talking about before we hit the record button, with the sector forced to adapt to challenges like COVID-19. From the REIA's perspective, how is 2021 shaping up so far?
I mean, from a market's perspective, I think 2021 is going to be a strong year. All signs look promising for agents and agencies. I guess at the start of the pandemic, there was a lot of sort of market commentary around price falls from anywhere from 10 to 30%. And as you know, and as all your listeners know, that's simply just not happened. And there's not a lot of properties coming on the market. So supply is going to be tight, and demand from customers, wherever they are in Australia, is going to be very, very strong. So I think it's going to be a positive thing for agencies, but I'm sure they would always like more transactions and higher values. That's natural for any business. I think we'll see continued trends in that sort of regional sales and lifestyle segment, and probably in the inner cities where there is a lot of vacancies, you'll see a lot of tenants cutting new deals. So from that perspective, I think it's going to be a good year for businesses operating in the sector.
Yeah, definitely. All signs are pointing to positivity at the moment. And I mean, certainly everyone's come back to work with a fair bit of positivity, albeit without much of a break.
Yeah, I mean, it's always easy in January. We'll check in again around Easter and we'll see how we're all going.
Yeah, absolutely. So much of last year was spent handling COVID-19 with the government introducing a raft of measures to support the property market. So we had the first home loan deposit scheme, mortgage deferrals, we had eviction moratoriums. Many of these are set to conclude or have concluded. So what do you believe now needs to be put in place?
I mean, just speaking specifically to those types of programs that you just spoke about, this morning we've had some good news. There's been 50,000 new jobs come into the Australian market. Unemployment's dropped to around 6.6%. So that's a really kind of quite positive sign for property and for markets and for both investors and tenants. In terms of the end of those rental eviction moratoriums and the loan deferral programs, I think they will all end, but there will be continued support to those customers that need it. And we support that. Our members work in communities every day, people working in those sectors that aren't going to recover for a long time, higher education, international tourism. They're going to need long-term targeted support. But I think you'll see the ease off of those blanket programs in terms of the moratoriums, JobKeeper and the loan deferrals, and see that go very much to a one-to-one basis for those that need it. Just in terms of the end of the rental eviction moratoriums, I always find that a mouthful, sorry. Our priority will really turn to, in almost every state and territory, there was landlord support programs, and our priority is going to be using those landlord support programs where funds are unspent to support landlords and investors that need them, and repackage that and prioritise that funding so it can be of benefit and it is spent in the right place.
Yeah, interesting. So that's obviously one of your big priorities in the months ahead. Is there anything else that's firmly on your agenda to do with government or to do with any of these other support programs going on or ending?
Oh, I mean, we've got a lot going on, and there is always the possibility of a federal election being called this year. But I think REIA, as you may or may not know, we've been around since 1924, and we've been very good at neutralising threats to markets and businesses and running very clear and strong reactive campaigns to that. I think the pandemic has allowed us to have a rethink and a reset of that. So this year we will be doing a lot more research and deep dives into the future of agencies and the future of customers to be more future focused in the way we respond to those threats and capitalise on opportunities. So some key areas we'll be looking at: the role of central banks and lending as the global pandemic economic response rolls out, amping up our policies to support the customers of the future, whether they're first home buyers, investors, owner-occupiers. A lot of the stuff around negative gearing is that it was, an unfair playing field for first home buyers. So we believe there can be some tax incentives introduced to actually help people buy their first homes. Obviously, climate change and sustainability, working with insurers and builders will be critically important. The role of foreign investment in housing and housing stock, I could go on, but I think my point is really working with business and customers to identify what's important to them in a 5 to 10 year horizon and having a really good policy agenda to deal with that strategically.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think that the government needs to understand better about the real estate industry that they maybe don't quite get at the moment?
Look, I'm new and I'm still learning, so probably this is more my personal observation about what governments don't understand. I mean, governments think in years and agents think in days to market. And I think really that deadline-driven, high-pressure environment where you're constantly cycling through listings is just not something government understands. And the nature of agents being sort of this person that talks to everyone within that property transaction is something that they lack understanding of. And I think if we could raise some awareness in that, that would allow them greater understanding to make better policy and support programs for our, constituents or agencies operating in the market. And I mean, I really think My other observation is the role of an agent and the role of a local politician. It's all local. So I think all MPs, if they don't already, should form better relationships with agents in their area, because I think they would learn a lot from that and gain some benefits both at a constituent voter level, but also better understanding the nature of property transactions.
Actually, now that you've mentioned that, I think you're absolutely right about that, because both would have to be well connected with the neighbourhoods and doing similar things, even door knocking probably. So
you're running field campaigns, whether it's political or business marketing. So there are so many similarities.
Could swap prospecting tips.
Correct.
So have you had a chance to catch up with all the various leaders of the real estate institutes in the other states?
Yes, some I have not been able to meet personally, but I've definitely met all of them. Obviously, they're my members and they're my investors and shareholders. So, of course, I've met and spoken with them all at length. And I think that the pandemic has really allowed all the states and territories to pull together and share knowledge and work on advocacy. That's been really beneficial. I've always said a common enemy unites us all, and the pandemic's definitely done that for the real estate institutes. And I was just thinking through some of the key things that REIA sort of successfully lobbied for in that sort of, let's call it the post-March 2020 period, which was getting commission agents into the JobKeeper program and getting new recipients into JobKeeper 2.0. And that was able to be achieved through great teamwork, great messaging, and REIA's very good long-standing relationships with government. And we all know that's been a good thing for the industry.
Going forward, I've got to ask the question, does uniting some of the individual REIs mean that there'll be a more uniform education system across Australia, or is that something that you would ever advocate for?
Oh, look, I would hope so. I think a common set of standards that reflect the best of the best and give customers confidence when they're going to select an agent and give agents a point of difference when they're going out to market to customers is really, really important, and it should be a core thing of what we do, and it should be a reason that REI membership sets agents apart from the rest. So I think that should definitely be on the agenda.
And last year there was a group of industry leaders that set themselves up, the Real Estate Industry Partners. So where do you think that the two groups kind of sit in relation to each other on the playing field at the moment?
Look, my understanding of the REIP is that it's a business collective. It's there to look at opportunities for business efficiencies and innovation and actually business-based R&D. I've had dealings with collectives in the past. I think they're a very, very good thing. They make commercial sense to me. I encourage that type of activity within any sector because it makes good business sense. But are they a national policy and advocacy organisation? No, I don't see that as their role, and I don't think they see that for themselves as their role.
Yeah, okay, so two very different things.
Yes, working on good outcomes for the industry, which I think is the important thing.
So let's get on to some predictions or crystal ball gazing, and I'm terrified of that these days because of the last couple of years when everything has not been as predicted at all. But where would you like to see the industry in 5 years' time?
I think I'd like it to be sustainable, prosperous, and have a fair and level playing field with other parts of the business sector. I'd like the industry to be singing from one song sheet in terms of what we're saying to the federal government. And I'd really like us to be thinking about our customers and where they're going and how we can make the Australian property market better and better, because all Australians love property. And if we can make that experience better for them, businesses are only going to grow and we're all going to have a better experience in our homes and in the investment decisions we're making.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Anna, I'd like to thank you for spending some time with us today. It's been great to meet you and chat to you and find out more about your objectives for the next couple of years. If there was one final takeaway or piece of advice or something that you'd like our listeners to remember from this podcast, what would it be?
I think the industry is coming into a time where it'll be a period of strong growth, and there's a lot of opportunities for businesses to change their business and be more tech-driven and transform a little bit. And I personally see the real estate institutes as playing a big part in that. So really, for your listeners, get involved in your local real estate institute. Talk to REIA about an affiliate membership if that suits your style of business. We're actually hiring at the moment, so those working in agency property marketing, take a look at that. And I think actually get involved in that future focused look at the industry and where we're going to go and how everyone can be more profitable in 10 years' time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great to hear. And actually, we're recruiting too. So
We can swap.
there's all those jobs. So anyway, Anna Neelagama, thank you so much.
Yeah, great to meet you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Elevate with thanks to connectnow.com.au. Don't forget to download your written action guide from this podcast containing extra tips, links and shortcuts. Visit eliteagentelevate.com.